Hey everyone, this is Ken over at Just Florida Homes. Today is August 17th, 2024, which is the date where this whole NAR, National Association of Realtors change is taking place in the industry. And I've had a lot of clients been reaching out, asking me to comment on what my thoughts were and how it was going to impact the real estate market. So today's the day to do it. There's been a lot of change that has happened. There's a whole bunch of confusion in the marketplace, and I really just want to try and boil it down into a couple of points. And really everything's going to be fine, but things are going to be a little bit different if you're trying to buy a home after today. So one of the major changes is that the lawsuit against National Association of Realtors required that all MLSs would take the buyer's agent commission out of the MLS. So now any buyer's agent that's representing you as a buyer will no longer know if the seller is offering any compensation as part of the transaction, and that's to compensate the buyer's agent. So traditionally, the listing agreement would define how much the listing agent would be paid and how much the buyer's agent compensation will be paid. That was called a co-broke in our lingo. So now what'll happen is the sellers will probably, in a lot of cases, still offer that co-broke or buyer's agent commission. The real crux of the change is that any buyer's agent that is representing a buyer after today is going to require that they have what's called a buyer's broker agreement in place. And so that'll define a lot of different things, and most of it has to do with the exclusivity of it and also how much compensation that your buyer's agent will be paid. There are some instances where a buyer will now have to contribute towards the buyer's agent commission or compensation. I don't think that's going to be the case in many instances, but you have to be prepared for that because there are going to be a number of different aspects of the negotiation that will have to happen as a result of this change. So let's say you've found your buyer's agent, you've interviewed a bunch of buyer's agents, and you found the right one. And that's going to be a critical process as part of this new change. You're going to want to have the best buyer's agent you possibly can have, because that buyer's agent is going to have a lot more negotiation to do, and they're going to have to actually show where they're adding value and get paid for the value that they're adding to the transaction. So here's how I see it going down. You'll have the buyer's agent commission and everything defined in the buyer's broker agreement. Let's say it's 2.5% or 3%. You go out and you look at 8 houses with that buyer's agent, and you decide that 2 of them would be good candidates for you. One of them is paying the 2.5% or 3%, that the seller is paying that, and another is paying 0. So what do you do in that situation? What I would tell you is, when you present an offer, let's talk about the one that's paying 0. When that buyer's agent presents an offer to that listing agent and to that seller, they can also attempt to negotiate for the seller to pay at least a portion of whatever the commission is defined as in your buyer's broker agreement. And I think that's going to be the norm. So that if they make a good solid offer on that seller's house, maybe it's full price or maybe it's even a little over asking price, that seller is going to be more apt to say, you know what, you've brought me a good buyer and it's a great transaction for me, and I'm happy to pay you 2%. Okay, they've decided to pay 2%, but your buyer's broker agreement says you're supposed to be getting 2.5% or 3%. So what happens with that 0.5% or 1%? In some instances, the buyer's agent may say, I'm fine with the 2%. In other instances, they may ask the buyer to contribute that 0.5%. So it's another aspect of the negotiation that needs to happen. And really, that's it. The whole thing, though, is you're going to need to have the best buyer's agent you can find. One that has the ability to navigate this entire new change and represent you and very explicitly be able to negotiate at a much higher level than many of them have had to in the past. So that's my opinion on how the whole buyer's agent NAR lawsuit thing's going to go down, and I'll update this as we progress, but it's really going to be fine. Give us a call and let's discuss the change and how we can help you out. Again, this is Ken at Just Florida Homes. Hope this helps.